Blessings are everywhere in our daily lives. The question is whether we see them or not. Sometimes it takes growing up to be grateful for our many unseen blessings. Such was the case with Kareem. He grew up in a small home with 3 brothers and 2 sisters. Both his mother, Samira, and his father, Habib, worked long hours. Being the oldest, Kareem had to learn early on how to take care of himself and help his brothers and sisters too. He wished they had a bigger home and that he had his own room. He knew he should be grateful that his parents worked as hard as they did. They made sure that there was a roof over their heads and food to eat. He told himself that when he got older, he would somehow find a way to make his parents' lives easier. His parents would often say, "Please do well in school. Your education is everything. We were not given this chance, and you are our hope." Kareem tried hard in school, but his real love was basketball. He was one of the best players on the team. He was well liked by his teammates, but his closest friend was the point guard, Michael Poloni. They were equals on the court, but that's where their similarities ended. The Poloni family was very wealthy. Michael would tell Kareem, "We are blessed." Michael had the best sneakers, clothes, and iPhone. Kareem couldn't help but be envious. He knew his parents could not afford the things Michael had. Why couldn't Kareem's family be blessed too? A few weeks later, Michael invited Kareem to sleep over. Kareem couldn't believe how big the house was and how many bathrooms they had. The housekeeper was in the kitchen preparing dinner, and Michael's mom and dad were nowhere to be seen. Michael and Kareem played video games until dinner was served. Both of Michael's parents sat at opposite ends of the dinner table. Neither spoke nor looked at each other. Kareem and Michael sat in front of the TV eating on trays, something that would never be tolerated by Kareem's parents. Michael's mother seemed sad and lonely, and Michael's dad seemed distant and angry. There was no talking about school or the great practices the boys had. As soon as dinner was over, Michael's mother went upstairs and Michael's dad went into the study. Kareem suggested that they help clean up, but Michael told him the housekeeper wouldn't like that. The boys went upstairs to Michael's room. It looked like an arcade and lacked for nothing. There were no rules or bedtime at this home. The boys did whatever they wanted for as long as they wanted. Although Kareem had a good time, he could not stop thinking about how sad Michael's mother seemed and how angry Michael's dad looked. A beautiful home filled with pain, loneliness, and sadness. The next weekend, Kareem invited Michael over. He was worried about how small and crowded the house was, and that there was only one bathroom. As they walked in after practicing, Kareem's dad asked how school was, and especially basketball practice. Michael couldn't stop talking. When it came time for dinner, Michael helped set the table and helped dry the dishes after. He needed some instruction, but Kareem couldn't believe how happy Michael seemed and how well he fits in. Kareem shared a bedroom with his younger brother Samir, so Michael slept in Kareem's bed and Kareem slept on the floor. Samir loved basketball too, and wanted to be a point guard just like Michael. They spent half the night talking. The next morning, after a big breakfast, Michael practiced with Samir in the backyard. Then Kareem walked Michael home. Michael was very quiet on the walk home. After some time, Michael stopped and said, "Remember when I told you that my family was blessed? Well, I was wrong. You are the one blessed, Kareem. You have a caring family. You have a responsible dad. I can feel that love and respect surrounded in your small home. I can confess that we have a house, but you have a home. What I am looking for is a small home full of love and respect, not a big house roofed with anger and hatred."
Hector is 80 years old. He currently owns a shop that sells car parts. Hector has been working here for his whole life and barely gets to have any vacations. One day he walks into work and starts to doze off. He tried his hardest to stay awake, but he can't seem to keep his eyes open. He opens up his shop and sits behind the cash register. Hector immediately falls asleep. In his dream, he realizes that he knows someone walking around in his shop. He looks for this person, but can't seem to figure it out. Suddenly, he walks towards the figure and feels that God is shopping around for car parts. Once he can almost see God's face, Hector wakes up. Hector can't believe what he just felt. He starts to contemplate if that was real or it was just a dream. He thinks to himself, God is supposed to visit me in my shop. I know he has to. Hector sits patiently in his chair, looking at the door, awaiting God's arrival. As he is waiting, he notices a person sitting on the sidewalk outside. That person is only wearing shorts and a shirt while it is raining outside. Hector goes to the door and calls for the person to come inside his shop. The person enters the shop while Hector grabs a blanket and wraps it around him. This person appears to be homeless, so Hector decides to feed him also. Once Hector can see that this man is warm, he lets him back out. An hour goes by as Hector is helping out some of his customers, but then a woman and her child are crying outside across the street. Hector finishes helping out his customers and then immediately goes outside to the woman and child. They beg him if he has any food because they have been living on the street for a couple of months. Hector tells them to come inside his shop where he can feed them. He feeds the two of them and lets them eat and enjoy the warmness of the shop. After they are finished eating, Hector gives the woman and her child some money, so they don't have to worry about struggling for a while. The woman and her child leave, thanking Hector for his kind acts. About 30 minutes later, a car parks right in front of the shop. It appears that her car got a flat tire, and how conveniently she stopped in front of Hector's shop. Hector runs outside and sees the tire damage. He runs back inside his shop to grab some tools and a spare tire. Hector quickly replaces the flat tire and tells the woman that it is free of charge. The woman is so thankful for him and leaves. Hector goes back into the shop and sits down, exhausted. He started to see ghost faces as he looks up at the ceiling. The faces were all the faces of the people that he had helped that day. They seemed to be sitting down in a ghost-like form. Hector can't believe what he is seeing, but then the ghosts disappear into thin air. Hector wipes his glasses, seeing if that was really real, and indeed it was. Hector started to think to himself that God doesn't visit him physically, but God does send people who need help, so he can help them. Hector smiles and notices what he did that day was the best thing he could do. This story teaches us that God can come in many ways. You might not see him physically, but instead see him through other people's actions or acts of kindness.
Hello. Remember, we are not just telling stories. We are inspiring you to have a better life and a very good family relationship. Make sure like and subscribe the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.
It was the wedding day of Amir and Fatima. A mother's dream came true. But for Amir's mother, Maryam, it was a nightmare.
Maryam had her heart set on her only son marrying Tahira, a very religious and obedient girl from a prestigious family. But Amir had fallen in love with Fatima, a very brazen and opinionated girl who openly spoke her mind. Amir clearly had eyes for no other. What was meant to be, Maryam kept saying under her breath. Maryam was a widow, and, as it is the custom, she would live with her son and daughter-in-law. After the honeymoon, the three started their life together. From the beginning, Fatima resented Maryam's presence in what Fatima considered her home. Maryam tried being helpful with the cooking and household chores, but was seen as interfering. Fatima felt smothered by her mother-in-law's presence and was threatened by her expertise in the kitchen and how organized she was with the household duties. Eventually, Maryam decided to avoid Fatima and just stay in her room. One day, Amir heard his mother sobbing, and she confided in him how badly Fatima treated her. He promised his mother he would talk to his young bride. Amir took Fatima out for a surprise dinner at one of her favorite restaurants and tried discussing her relationship with his mother, but Fatima wasn't having any of it. She told Amir she found the situation intolerable and threatened to end the marriage. Amir felt completely helpless and felt he had nowhere to turn. He hoped in time the two women he loved could work it out. Perhaps with a baby in the home, things would change for the better. One afternoon, Fatima left the house to meet a friend, but instead went to see her doctor, a lifetime friend. She discussed in depth her unhappiness at home and how she wished her mother-in-law were dead. The wise old doctor, after some thought, gave Fatima a vial of liquid. He told her it was poison and to put a few drops in Maryam's food or drink every day. He said, "She should be dead in 6 months, but there is a caveat. In order for the plan to work, you must be exceptionally nice, kind, and respectful to your mother-in-law. Accept her help and guidance. Perhaps learn from her and have peace in the household. That way, no one will ever suspect that you had anything to do with her death." Fatima was very relieved and did exactly as she was told. Every day, she put a few drops from the vial in Maryam's food. The rest of the time, she allowed Maryam to help her, first with the cooking. She even learned how to make Amir's favorite food, and then with the household duties too. Before Fatima knew it, she looked forward to her mother-in-law's help and guidance. They worked well together, and sometimes Amir swore he could hear them laughing. Fatima continued to pour a few drops from the vial in Maryam's food until one day she realized she loved her mother-in-law and would be lost without her. She rushed back to the doctor and begged him for an antidote. He sadly replied that it was too late. He calculated Maryam would probably never meet her grandchild. Yes, Fatima was pregnant. Fatima burst into tears and demanded him to do something, anything. It was then that the wise old doctor dried her tears and explained, "When a doctor graduates, he takes an oath to do no harm. There was never any poison in the vial. The poison was in your heart, and I hoped with time you would turn that poison into love for your mother-in-law. If you want love, kindness, and respect, then you must treat others the same way. Now, you are carrying a new life and think how wonderful and joyous it will be for you to pass that lesson on to your child.
A family arrived at a parking lot where they sell Christmas trees. The whole family gets out of the car and starts to walk around. They look at all different kinds of trees consisting of small, medium, and large sizes. The family goes to a Christmas tree and inspects it. Louis looks at the price tag. The price of the tree is $65. He goes to a worker and tells him he wants that tree for his family. The worker walks over to the tree and grabs it so he can trim it before the family buys it. The family starts walking to the cash register, but then the man hears a little girl's voice off in the distance. There's a mom and daughter shopping for Christmas trees as well. She and her daughter walk around the whole parking lot, but they can't seem to pick out a tree. They both approach a Christmas tree that is normal sized. The mom looks at the price tag and sees the tree is $65. The daughter says, "Can we get this one, Mommy? It will be the perfect one." The mom inspects the tree and sees that there's a branch broken. The mom uses this as an excuse to tell her daughter, "Honey, look, the tree is all messed up. Let's go home and try to get one another day." The mom knows she can't afford the Christmas tree, but she was hoping that she would find one for $15. The man watches as this whole scenario goes down. He sees how upset the daughter is when the mom tells her that she can't get the tree. Louis sees the mom and daughter walking away. Suddenly, he drops a $100 bill on the ground. Before the mom and daughter can leave, the man shouts, "Hey! I think you dropped this on the ground." The mom looks back with a confused look. She walks over to the man with her daughter. The mom sees the $100 bill on the ground and immediately tells her daughter to go look at the tree. The daughter doesn't see the money on the ground and goes over to the tree area. The mom picks up the $100 bill and looks at the man with excitement. She quickly goes over to the daughter and picks out the perfect Christmas tree. Louis goes back with his family as the worker is almost done trimming the tree. The family loads up the Christmas tree on top of their car, ready to go. The man sees the mom and daughter at the cash register waiting for their tree to be done. The mom spots the man in the parking lot. They meet halfway to each other. She says, "Thank you so much for helping me buy the tree and not letting my daughter see that you helped me. I really appreciate you. It's hard being a single mom sometimes because I can't provide for her. But you just made my day, and hers." Louis acknowledges how much he has helped the mom and daughter. He gives the mom a hug and goes back to his car. The family leaves the parking lot as the mom and daughter load their Christmas tree on top of their car. The family passes by the mom. The man waves goodbye to her and goes home.
Hello. Remember, we are not just telling stories. We are inspiring you to have a better life and a very good family relationship. Make sure like and subscribe the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.
A watch is in Pete's left hand as he is sitting outside on the porch. He holds it up and tells his son Chris to inspect it. Chris looks at the watch and sees that it has dust all over it. Pete starts to tell his son that the watch is 200 years old. "I got this watch from my great-great-grandfather. This watch is worth a lot of money these days," said Pete. He keeps inspecting it, then hands it over to Chris and tells them to go sell it. He looked at his dad and said, "Are you sure? Doesn't this watch mean a lot to you?" Pete insists that he sells the watch. He tells him to go to a watch store. Chris agrees and heads over to the store. When he gets inside, he looks for a worker. Once he finds one, he gives the watch to the worker and asks, "How much can I get for this?" The worker inspects it and only offers him $5. Chris looks at him in a twisted way. He snatches the watch out of his hand and leaves the store. Chris heads back home and tells his dad that they only offered him $5. His dad looks at his son and tells him to go to an antique shop to see how much he can get for the watch there. Chris goes over to the antique shop and shows one of the workers the watch. The worker looks at him with a surprised face. "Wow, you must have had this watch for a long time, because it's worth $5,000. What do you say? Does that sound like a deal?" Chris shakes his head no and goes back home. He tells his dad that they only offered him $5,000, but he was tempted to sell it since that's a lot of money. Pete tells his son to go to a museum and auction it off. He heads to a museum and auctions it off. At the end of the day, someone offers to buy the watch for $1 million. Chris starts to scream with excitement as he is about to become a millionaire. They inspect the watch and see that there is a scratch, so they don't accept it. Chris goes home with the watch and tells his dad that they were willing to give him $1 million. His dad grabs the watch and holds it out for his son. He starts to say, "Look, son, I told you to go to all these different places so I can teach you a valuable lesson. Human beings are like this watch. Whenever someone doesn't value or respect you as a person, then it is time to change your place. Don't feel panicked if you feel like you aren't above them, but in reality you are, because you are so much higher and better than them. Whoever values you will value you and treat you with respect. Please don't put yourself in a situation where you are not treated with respect, because people will take advantage of you." Chris starts to hear his words of wisdom. He now understands why his dad was telling him to go to all these places. He promises his dad that he knows his worth and won't let anybody take advantage of him. Pete looks at his son with respect as he takes in that valuable information. This story teaches us to know your worth. As a person, you should know the amount of respect and value you need.
Hello guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember, we are not just telling the story, we are inspiring you to have a better life. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.